ChatGPT has taken the world by storm this year. Homework, cover letters, TV scripts. Just joking. So I guess it was only a matter of time before it turned its sights to stock picking. A new research paper from the University of Florida found that the AI platform had better than random results when looking for investment ideas. So we decided to put the bot to the test ourselves. We asked ChatGPT which stocks could outperform the S&P 500 in the second half of 2023. The response did have some caveats. ChatGPT said it cannot provide specific investment advice and suggested looking at a company's fundamentals as competitors, as well as analyst recommendations before investing. So it gave basically just a
disclaimer.
Exactly. But ultimately, okay, the AI model did come up with a few potential names for us: Apple, Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson, and Alphabet. Traders are probably safe for now. Let's bring in the co-author behind the paper, Alejandro Lopez Lira. He is an assistant finance professor at the University of Florida. Professor, great to have you with us. What did you find? Because what is just important to understand about the current ChatGPT is that its data set is old, so it doesn't have any current information, and everything is based on looking back as opposed to predicting.
Correct. So we actually use that to our advantage, because if you use it with old data, you may actually not predicting the future, just remembering what happened with some stocks. So what we do is we put on a headline and ask ChatGPT, is this headline good or bad for the company? And importantly, we ask ChatGPT to pretend to be a financial advisor so that their usual disclaimer does not apply.
Okay. So was it accurate in determining, because headlines are tricky, particularly in financial news, because you could see something declined and maybe on the surface that may seem bad, but compared to estimates, it was actually better than expected. There are a lot of nuances.
Yes, correct. So it was a little bit surprising to see that it predicted very well, and it's actually able to capture some nuances. So for example, one headline was about that Google was resilient in this bad macro environment, and ChatGPT answer was like, well, this seems good for the stock price because, even though it's a bad macro environment, the fact that Google is showing resilience may point towards better stock price.
Alejandro, it's Karen. Thanks for being on. Let me ask you, what exactly was the mission? What did you ask it to do?
So the exact question that we ask is, pretend you're a financial advisor. Here's a headline. Is this headline going to be good or bad for the company in the short term?
But for the picking stock parts.
Oh, it's exact. Oh, so we just modify the question a little bit to ask for the stock pricing. And then, once you have enough headlines, you basically just invest in the companies with good headlines and not invest in the companies with bad headlines. So the stock picking exercise is kind of it's conditional on a good headline.
Clearly, the more investors use this, there's no edge, right? I mean, if everybody's using ChatGPT and asking similar questions, Alejandro, everybody's getting the same output. So what is your thinking in terms of how this could actually be applied down the road by Wall Street, that they would have better data sets, that they would sort of concentrate on the data that it feeds that AI model?
Correct. On one hand, it's going to decrease the amount of work that you need to in order to understand financial statements or news headlines, because analyst jobs just got so much easier, right? Like I can mostly plug into a news, ask for a summary, and most of the time it's going to be roughly accurate, and I can check the rest of the time. So a lot of it is going to come in increased productivity for these analysts, and definitely the financial industry is going to be looking for the new edge. How can they invest? How can they make it better? But I absolutely agree that a month from now, ChatGPT is not going to be useful anymore to predict returns.
So should anybody on Wall Street be afraid for their jobs based on what you've seen?
Or on fast money.
or here on this show.
I think on fast money, you're safe. I do think at first there will be the job will just become easier, right? Like the job will just become easier because you have so much more tools. I myself have felt the increase in productivity. And afterwards, it's always a good idea to make yourself necessary for the company.
All right, Alejandro, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Fascinating paper. Alejandro Lira Lopez. You said that we're safe. We're all safe here. You feeling safe, guys?
No.
For different reasons. There's other reasons why we should not be feeling safe.
You were on the Squawk Box this morning. You were talking about, Joe Kernan was talking, he's terrified. Somebody like me, this is terrifying. The computer becomes self-aware, the whole thing.
Singularity.
Singularity, exactly. So of course I'm terrified by this. The good news is, though, I'm probably on the back nine of things, so it doesn't really matter all that much.
But in terms of, I mean, there are efficiencies to be wrought from this.
We've been talking about the algos, I feel like, for a decade, and it's really not too different. I don't think there's going to be some chat functionality that changes the deal for all intents and purposes. But we talk on this show, we talk about fundamentals, we talk about technicals, we talk about sentiment, we talk about news. Like the list goes on and on and on. That's what machine learning is good at interpreting in a very quick fashion. And we have plenty of people who've been committing tons of resources, lots of big hedge funds, to doing this for 30 years, actually. You know what I mean? So I think the pace of the acceleration is the thing that we all should be worried about, even you, Tim.
Thank you. And by the way, go Gators. Let's give Alejandro his just due. I think it's kind of reverse engineering in looking at how we got somewhere on a stock. And that, of course, we all know in the stock market, though, knowing the history does not give you the ability to predict the future.
Sure.
Speaking of disclaimers, that, of course, would have also been part of that lead in. Yeah, so it's fascinating stuff, though.
It is. I'm surprised it didn't come up with NVIDIA. For real.
Yeah.
Right? Given that it's sort of the raw material of creating this AI.
Right.